Su Qian might never have imagined in his life that two great scholars would fight over recruiting him, just as Su Qian revealed that the poem was not his own creation, but by his brother. The three scholars were initially shocked. Then, Zhang Shun showed an expression of understanding, but the students were in an uproar, all asking if this great talent was from their academy. The discussion grew more intense. Where did Su Qi's brother study? How come we've never heard of him? Who was your brother's teacher? Come on, tell us. Such talent, and we knew nothing about him. The students were anxious. Su Qian suddenly realized he had made a mistake. He had been influenced by his crude father. I shouldn't have mentioned my crude brother. All occupations are inferior. Only studying is esteemed. It shows that scholars are proud. Su Qian himself is no exception. If everyone were to find out that Su Qian is merely a crude dentist, a lowly individual who could still compose a masterpiece 7-character poem, where would our dignity be? Su Qian, with a stiffened scalp, stayed home to diligently study the classics. Neither at Yunlu Academy, nor at the Imperial College. He has a reserved and non-competitive personality. He neither seeks fame nor public recognition, only wishing to live a simple and content life. The students of Bailu Academy were astonished and felt a desire to befriend him. How could there be such a modest and frugal person, truly a model for all scholars? After the ceremony concluded, Ziyang's scholars set off for Qinzhou. The first prize, unsurprisingly, went to Su Qian. At this moment, Yang Gong, beaming with pride, hinted meaningfully, such great talent should not be hidden away. Purity and prudence are key. What do you think? The two great scholars either genuinely didn't understand, or pretended not to, and silently sent Ziyang's scholar off with his entourage. As the carriage faded into the distance, Li Mubai suddenly grabbed Su Qian's hand and pulled him aside. Cigio, I've suddenly felt the urge to take on a disciple. Today, I'll make an exception. Take me to meet your elder brother. Zhang Shun interjected directly. Li Mubai, Cigio, if both you and your brother were to become my disciples, it would undoubtedly be a wonderful tale. Writing poetry isn't the main point. The key is not to let such talent go to waste. If, in the future, he happens to compose a timeless poem, like Masterless Zhang Shun, or something similar, wouldn't that be splendid? Li Mubai retorted unhappily, military strategy isn't mainstream. Scholars should first master the classics and statecraft, cultivate themselves, and manage their families. Zhang Shun snorted coldly, and your way is mainstream? Besides, you're a sore loser. You've never won against Wei Yuan. Old thief. Shut your mouth. Don't mention Wei Yuan in front of me. I've always cherished talent. This student is mine to teach. You old fool. Is it really about cherishing talent? You're just coveting his poetic skills. Shameless old thief. Watch me blast you with my righteous aura, as if I don't have one too. The two great scholars argued, their faces red with fury, and soon they began to physically fight. Meanwhile, on the other side, Su Qian was sparring with his second uncle. The two exchanged blows evenly. His second uncle praised, not bad, your skills have improved. Su Qian modestly replied, you flatter me. His second uncle sighed, to advance to the refinement realm, aside from medicinal baths, you'll need a master at the divine refinement realm to open your heavenly gate. Otherwise, you'll never step into the refinement realm in your lifetime. I risked life and death in the Shanghai frontier, accumulating military merits, before a master in the army opened my heavenly gate, allowing me to enter the refinement realm. His second uncle sighed again. When I returned home, the next year, Xinyan was born. Su Qian wiped his sweat. Second uncle, what are you trying to say? Your second uncle is getting old. My only wish is to see you marry and have children, so I can face your late father with a clear conscience. Su Qian was speechless. To advance, aside from accumulating merits, there's another method, spending money. Martial artists often break the law, so the court strictly controls their numbers. It's explicitly stated that masters at the divine refinement realm cannot privately open the heavenly gate for anyone. If they wish to open the heavenly gate for their family members, they must report it to the authorities. However, the current bureaucratic atmosphere is terrible, corruption rampant, and the court's authority. Even if they dare not openly defy the law, many masters at the divine refinement realm still seek transactions in the black market. Su Qian worked hard to earn money, with the idea of using silver to replace military merits. Otherwise, being stuck at the refinement realm without breaking through, what's the point of having this iron rod? After the tax case concluded, Su Qian's relationship with his family improved significantly. After a month of interaction, Su Lingyue's impression of her cousin changed a lot. It wasn't as distant as before. This was actually the first time she had gone shopping with her elder brother. At this moment, Su Qian stared at her, suddenly thinking of a way to make money. Could he perhaps improve clothing designs, making women's clothes more beautiful and alluring? In an instant, many groundbreaking women's garments flashed through his mind, but he quickly dismissed the idea. In this conservative society, if he were to create such clothing, he'd probably be executed. A young but urgent voice interrupted Su Qian's thoughts. The little bean pointed at a street vendor and said, "Sister, I want to eat sugar-coated haws." The Su family had suffered a great disaster, and their finances were depleted. Life had been quite tight for the past month. Su Lingyue didn't have any spare change to buy her sister sugar-coated haws. The little bean turned to her elder brother, but Su Qian sighed. He hadn't brought any money either. He would soon have some. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped on something. He bent down and picked it up. It was indeed a coin. Now he had money for the brothel again. But this really wasn't scientific. Every time, it was exactly the amount needed for the brothel. Was it fate that he frequented brothels? But first, he needed to find a way to break through to the refinement realm. He still didn't know the ceiling of this world's power levels. Once his abilities improved, perhaps he could figure out the reason for this ridiculous luck. Su Qian generously bought 3 sticks of sugar-coated haws. Su Lingyue said softly and politely, "Thank you, elder brother." Su Qian looked at her, thinking to himself how pleasing his sister was to the eye. At this moment, a pair of small hands waved in front of Su Qian's face. Elder brother, is your sugar-coated haw sweet?" The little bean drooled, mumbling as she asked Su Qian. He saw through the little girl's thoughts. "You want to eat it?" Su Lingying was startled. She hadn't expected her elder brother to see through her. "Elder brother is amazing." Su Qian chuckled. "If you eat too many sugar-coated haws, worms will grow in your mouth." The little bean's face showed caution. "What kind of worms?" Su Qian thought for a moment and described, "The kind that are white, plump, and greasy all over." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw his younger sister swallow her saliva, her face showing anticipation. Su Qian was speechless. He handed her the sugar-coated haws directly. At this moment, the little bean was captivated by the scene before her. Guiwei Tower was a third-class brothel, but even a third-class brothel required at least 2 coins of silver as a base fee for drinks. The cost of hiring a girl depended on her quality. The cheaper ones cost around 5 or 6 coins, while the more expensive ones cost 1 or 2 taels. Su Qian calculated for a moment, confirming that he couldn't afford it. The little bean chirped, "Elder brother, the ladies upstairs are so pretty." Su Qian replied, "They're in business. Of course they have to dress well." The little bean asked curiously, "What kind of business?" "Selling buns." The little bean's eyes sparkled, looking up at the brothel, unwilling to leave. Su Lingyue stomped her foot and called out, "Elder brother, shameless." She scolded Su Qian for discussing such things with her younger sister. Su Qian quickly made his escape. The little bean pointed at Su Qian and said, "Elder brother is so nice." Su Lingyue let out a soft sigh. Not long after, Su Qian returned with a portion of fried fish balls. But at this moment, Su Qian saw 4 or 5 guards surrounding Su Lingyue. The 16-year-old girl looked like a trapped deer, protecting herself while trying to break free. She was on the verge of tears. Su Lingying saw her sister being bullied, and became so frantic that she didn't know what to do. She ran on her short legs to the young master, pointed at his nose, and began to scold him. The young master looked at the little bean in front of him, shouting and making a scene, and instinctively raised the whip in his hand, forcing the horse to rear up on its hind legs, and trample down towards Su Lingying. Su Lingyue let out a piercing cry of despair. A surge of rage welled up in Su Qian's heart. At the moment the horse's hooves lifted, he pulled out a string of copper coins from his pocket, and hurled them with all his strength. 72 copper coins whistled through the air, scattering toward the richly dressed young master. The young master, facing the incoming attack, showed no reaction. Instead, one of his guards reacted swiftly, lunging toward the young master, and knocking him off the horse. Some of the coins missed their target, while others embedded themselves into the horse. Splashes of blood sprayed onto Su Lingying's face. The little bean, frozen in place, had no idea what had just happened. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. She raised her small hand to wipe her face, only to find her hands covered in the freshly splattered blood. Su Qian quickly covered the little bean's hands, preventing her from seeing. Then he hugged her tightly, saying, "Don't be afraid, Big Brother is here." Despite the earlier danger, the little bean hadn't cried, but upon seeing her big brother, she immediately let down her guard and burst into tears. This was the first time since his transmigration that Su Qian had felt such anger. After rescuing the little bean, Su Qian immediately turned to Su Lingyue and said, "Take Lingying to the Changle County office and sound the drum. Tell them I sent you. Then have Wang Bu to send someone to the Yudao guard station to inform my second uncle at home. He should be on Huangling Street." Su Lingyue gave Su Qian a deep look, saying, "Big brother, take care," before carrying the little bean away. Meanwhile, the young master, having regained his composure, glared fiercely at Su Qian and said, "You killed my horse." Su Qian slowly stood up and calmly replied, "Yes, and now I want to kill you too." At this moment, Su Qian was more furious than ever before. The horse Su Qian had just killed was a priceless snow-hoof black dragon, a breed only high-ranking military officers could ride. Its value was equivalent to a modern-day Lamborghini. In ancient times, someone who could afford such a supercar was undoubtedly a top-tier official's son. Su Qian reigned in his anger, knowing full well that the only way to defeat an official's son was with another official's son. Given his current status, he truly had no outlet for his rage. Su Qian clasped his hands, suppressing his temper, and spoke politely. I am Su Qian, nephew of Su Pingji of the Weibin Guard. The two girls earlier are my sisters. I apologize if they offended you in any way. In the heat of the moment, I accidentally killed your prized horse. I will compensate you for the loss. The young master was momentarily stunned, then asked, Su Pingji? The one who lost the shadow guard. Su Qian breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, that's him. The young master's expression darkened, and he said coldly, go and cripple him. Just leave him breathing. The guards drew their swords and advanced. Su Qian watched the scene unfold, nearly cursing out loud. Is this guy insane? Two guards attacked simultaneously. Su Qian sidestepped to avoid them. The guards turned and flanked him from both sides. Su Qian bent low, narrowly dodging their. Then, with a light tap of his foot, he launched himself into the air. He thought to himself, these two are only at the early stage of refinement. They can't handle me. But just then, the two guards jumped to either side, and before Su Qian realized it, a third person appeared above him. By the time Su Qian reacted, the three had formed a pincer attack. Su Qian had no way to dodge and took a slash to the abdomen. Before he could recover, the person above him clasped his hands together and slammed down. The next moment, Su Qian was sent crashing to the ground like a cannonball. The young master, now said, kneel and kowtow to me. Call me Grandpa, and maybe I'll spare your life if I'm in a good mood. Su Qian shouted back. Grandpa's great-grandma tastes pretty good. Instead of angering Su Qian, the young master had embarrassed himself. He shouted, kill him. Don't leave him breathing. The guards closed in again. Su Qian gathered strength in his feet, cracking the bricks beneath him. He cursed inwardly. It's time for Grandpa to show off. Su Qian charged forward like an arrow. The guard saw Su Qian flying toward him, but had no time to react. Before Su Qian was upon him, the next moment, Su Qian crashed through him, breaking several ribs. The guard never expected Su Qian to have hidden his strength. Su Qian's momentum didn't slow. He charged straight at the young master. With a look of terror on his face, the young master's neck was seized. Realizing the danger, the young master tried to invoke his family's name, but Su Qian clenched his fist and delivered a brutal punch to his stomach. The young master's body curled up like a shrimp, blood spraying from his mouth. Su Qian said darkly, you dare bully my sister? This isn't over. He punched him several more times. The young master could only grunt in pain, unable to speak. The guards watched in horror, but none dared intervene. The young master collapsed to the ground, and Su Qian stepped on his face. If you can't win, call for help. That's how it's always been. Su Qian kept the young master pinned underfoot, while the surrounding guards hesitated to intervene. Though the young master's body was weak, his mouth remained defiant. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? You lowly brute. You'll pay for this when I get back. Su Qian kicked his wound, saying, I only know that even a common man has his limits, and when a common man snaps, blood will spill far beyond 5 steps. The two sides faced off for a moment, before a group of constables in black uniforms, armed with sabers, arrived. Leading them was Constable Wong. Bastards! How dare you brawl in the streets of Changle County? Take them all away. The constables complied, and moments later, the young master and his entourage were pinned to the ground. The young master, still confused, shouted, Why are you arresting me? Arrest that Su guy. I want him skinned alive. The constables ignored him, dragging him toward the yamen. Constable Wong turned to Su Qian and said, Brother, you've made a huge mistake. That bastard's background isn't simple. Have you thought about how to handle this? Su Qian thought to himself, I, Hu Han-san, have no choice. But he replied, First, notify my second uncle. Inside the yamen, a flustered official approached the young master and said, Isn't this young Master Zhou? How has Minister Zhou been lately? The richly dressed young master suddenly waved his sleeve, pointing at Su Qian and snarling, This man committed violence in public, and even tried to kill me. Arrest him immediately. Magistrate Zhu could only force a smile and try to mediate, then glared fiercely and kicked Su Qian, shouting, You fool! How dare you attack the son of Minister Langzhou? Do you have enough heads to lose? Though Magistrate Zhu acted this way on the surface, he sighed inwardly, thinking Su Qian had made a grave mistake. He turned back and put on a flattering smile again, saying, Young Master Zhou, this is a misunderstanding among family. We're all on the... A nobleman like you shouldn't bother with a small fry like him. Su Qian's heart sank. He realized the young master was the son of the Minister of Revenue. In the bureaucratic system of the Great Feng dynasty, an official's influence wasn't determined by rank alone, but by their background and power. There were many first and second rank officials, but only a handful truly held the pinnacle of power. The ministers and vice-ministers of the 6 ministries were among them. Even if Su Qian called his second uncle, a mere captain of the imperial guards, it would be useless. Beating the son of the minister of revenue was a serious matter. Su Qian knew he was in deep trouble. The young master, furious, shouted, "Don't give me that nonsense. If you won't arrest him, I'll do it myself." He waved his hand, ordering his guards, "Seize that man." He didn't believe Su Qian would dare resist. Inside the county yamen, Magistrate Zhu roared, "Who dares commit violence in the yamen? Kill them on sight." The yamen guards drew their sabers and rushed forward, blocking the guards who were about to act. The young master cursed Zhu, "You dare touch my men?" Magistrate Zhu maintained his flattering smile, saying, "Young Master Zhou, don't misunderstand. I am an imperial official, and I must act according to the law." He then produced a document, saying, "I have here a petition, accusing you of reckless riding and harassing a virtuous woman. The accuser is Su Lingyue." The young master scoffed, "Reckless riding? Who did I hurt? Harassing a virtuous woman? Ask anyone on the street. Did I lay a finger on her?" Magistrate Zhu put the petition away, saying, "Perhaps the woman mistook you for someone else." Su Qian began to panic. Magistrate Zhu couldn't handle this. He needed to find a way to save himself. If all else failed, he would have to flee, but that would implicate his second uncle's family. As his thoughts raced, he noticed one of the young master's guards, leaving the yamen. Magistrate Zhu didn't stop him, or perhaps couldn't stop him. Su Qian's heart sank further. He approached Constable Wang and whispered, "Brother Wang, I'm in deep trouble today. I need a favor. Lend me a tael of silver first." Constable Wang handed him some loose silver. Su Qian pocketed it and said, "Ride to my house and take a book from the cabinet by my bed. It's a blue book. Don't get the wrong one. Once you have it, go to the Xixianjian and find a girl named Kaiwei. Tell her Su Qian is in trouble. Come quickly." The Xixianjian was Su Qian's only hope. He asked Constable Wang to take the blue book and seek out Kaiwei. Constable Wang hesitated, saying, "The Xixianjian isn't a place for someone like me." Su Qian knew this would happen. He whispered, "If something happens to me, you won't get your silver back. But if you help me with this, next month's Fenglu allowance is yours." Constable Wang gritted his teeth. What else could he do? He cursed under his breath and rushed out of the yamen. Meanwhile, Su Qian's second uncle arrived. As soon as he entered the yamen, he saw the tense situation. Su Qian knew things were about to get worse. He braced himself for what was to come. The young master, cursing, pointed at him and said, "Who are you? How dare you barge into a place like this? Get out." Su's second uncle ignored him. On his way here, he had already learned the full story. Suppressing his anger, he said, "Young Master Zhou, can this matter be resolved peacefully?" The young master was startled by Su's second uncle's demeanor. Meeting his eyes, he felt a palpable killing intent. He recalled Su Qian's words on the street, and the arrogant retort stuck in his throat. At that moment, a commanding voice came from outside the yamen. "Su Baihu, you have quite the authority. If my young master refuses to let this go, do you intend to spill blood within 5 steps?" Su's second uncle felt the aura approaching from behind. The newcomer was a master of the refinement realm. This matter was becoming difficult to resolve. The young master was overjoyed. The old man saw the injuries on the young master's face, and was both heartbroken and furious. "Young master, how did you get hurt like this? Which damned beast did this to you? I've watched you grow up, and even the slightest injury pains me deeply." Su Qian was frantic. A 7th-rank refinement realm master, 2 ranks above him. How could he possibly win? Magistrate Zhu coughed and asked, "And you are?" The old man interrupted indifferently, "No need for formalities. I am merely an old servant of the Zhou family. I don't deserve such respect from Magistrate Zhu." Magistrate Zhu forced a smile, saying, "Old Qian, you're too modest. I think this is all a misunderstanding. With the imperial examinations approaching, we should all prioritize harmony. Don't you agree, Old Qian?" The old man sneered. "These insignificant nobodies won't affect the master's imperial examination. Moreover, the Zhou family has always ruled with virtue, and we act strictly according to the court's regulations." As soon as he finished speaking, a loud, chaotic commotion came from outside the yamen. In moments, the old man was surrounded by guards. At the forefront was an official in a light robe embroidered with white patterns. He scanned the room and declared, "All bystanders, step aside. Anyone who interferes will be treated as an accomplice." After speaking, Officer Huang forced a smile at the young master and asked, "Young master, where is the criminal?" The young master pointed at Su Qian. "Lock up that dog." Officer Huang waved his hand. "Seize him." The guards rushed forward and restrained Su Qian. Officer Huang glared. "Whether he is guilty or not, I will decide. As an official of the Ministry of Justice, I always enforce the law impartially." The young master sneered, watching as Su Qian was taken away. Su Pingji tried to intervene, but but Magistrate Zhu held him back firmly. The young master said to the old man, "I want Su Qian dead." The old man's eyes flashed with malice. "Don't worry, young master, I will handle it." Su's second uncle watched helplessly as they left. Unable to do anything, he slammed the ground and said, "I will appeal to the emperor." Magistrate Zhu sighed. "Forget it. You won't be able to see the emperor. The imperial palace is a forbidden place, not somewhere a mere captain of the imperial guards can enter. Besides, you don't have the right to petition the throne. The only thing you can do now is seek help from Ciju. He's a scholar at Yunlu Academy, and he might have a solution." Although Yunlu Academy was heavily suppressed in the political arena, with little room to survive, those who resided there were not powerless scholars. They were disciples of the sages, adept not only at reasoning with propriety, but also at enforcing it. Back then, Su Xinyan had escaped exile, thanks to the people of Yunlu Academy. The Xixianjian was a place filled with legends. The astrologers there observed the stars to determine laws, and they were said to be able to communicate with celestial beings. The alchemists of the Xixianjian brought blessings to the people, and in the eyes of the populace, they were akin to immortals. Since they were immortals, few dared to approach their residence, except for the unlucky Constable Wang. He had considered turning back several times, but he resisted the urge. On the first floor of the Star Observation Tower, a group of ninth-rank alchemists and their disciples had gathered. Constable Wang was spotted as soon as he entered. Constable Wang was nervous, his Adam's apple bobbing as he stammered, "I'm the constable from Changel County Yamen." He instinctively clutched the blue book in his arms. Meanwhile, on the 7th floor of the Star Observation Tower, Song Qing, the top 6th-rank alchemist and the 4th disciple of Master Jianzheng, was deep in thought. In the Xixianjian, everyone could claim to be a disciple of Master Jianzheng, but in reality, Master Jianzheng had only truly taught 6 disciples, known as the 6 sons of Xixianjian. Song Qing had been tirelessly researching the alchemy of extracting metals that Su Qian had mentioned, but all his attempts had failed. At that moment, an urgent voice interrupted Song Qing's thoughts. "Senior brother, a constable just came looking for senior sister Kaiwei, and he brought a message. Su Qian is in trouble. Come quickly." The disciple handed the blue book to Song Qing. Song Qing felt that the name Su Qian was familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had heard it. Song Qing opened the first page, and was immediately struck by the hideous handwriting, which looked like chicken scratches. But as he read on, he became engrossed. The preface on the first page read, "Equivalent Exchange, the Immutable Principle of Alchemy, Edward Elric." Song Qing began to ponder the meaning behind the name Edward Elric. Was it a code or some kind of alchemical cipher? Song Qing took a deep breath to steady himself, then eagerly flipped to the next page. The opening line read, Entering the World of Alchemy. It was a guide to stepping into the realm of alchemy. How arrogant, Song Qing thought to himself. Alchemy had always been taught through personal instruction. Those with talent could grasp the basics in a year or two, while those without might spend 50 years and achieve nothing. The Xixianjian had never had a proper textbook. Song Qing began reading the first chapter, and his astonishment grew. He recognized every word, but the combination of them made no sense. He had only one thought. What is chemistry? What is physics? What am I even reading? The disciples exchanged glances, not daring to disturb him. They were deeply concerned by the ever-changing expressions on Song Qing's face. Was senior brother pondering some unacceptable alchemical theory again? Last year, he had tried to refine a cat's flesh and blood so that it could regrow its head after being decapitated, but Master Jianzhe had confined him to his quarters for a month. Song Qing was lost in his own world. As he read, his eyes suddenly lit up. He had found a detailed explanation of how to refine tack silver. The key step in refining tack silver was revealed in the following pages. Eagerly, he flipped to the next page, only to find it blank. Song Qing felt a murderous rage. When he calmed down, he remembered the message the constable had delivered. Su Qian is in trouble. Come. Suddenly, everything became clear. This was an exchange. He slammed the table and stood up, his expression grew. Brothers, listen to me, he said, scanning the room. This is an opportunity for the Sishianjian to rise rapidly. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Alchemy may reach unprecedented heights. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the capital, Su Xinyan and his classmates were gathered on horseback. Just then, he saw his father galloping toward them. Su's second uncle called out, "Sijio," and quickly explained the situation with Su Qian's arrest. Su Xinyan understood the gravity of the situation. If not handled properly, Su Qian could lose his life. He immediately turned to the two carriages ahead and pleaded, "Qin, my family is in trouble." The two scholars exchanged glances, then nodded, and the two scholars leaned out of their carriages simultaneously, and in unison they asked, "Is this the talented scholar who wrote, 'Do not worry about the road ahead, lacking friends'? Who in the world does not know you?" Li Mubai cursed, "This is outrageous." Just as Zhang Shan was about to speak, Li Mubai interrupted, "Sijio, leave your brother's matter to me. You and your teacher should return to the academy first." Zhang Shan snorted coldly, "Meddlers, stay out of this. I will handle my students' affairs." Su Xinyan sighed inwardly. Is this really the time to bicker? "Teacher, Master Mubai, my brother has been taken to the Ministry of Justice. The situation is dire." Li Mubai nodded solemnly. Saving his future disciple was the priority. He reached out of the carriage and waved his hand. The coachman was lifted by a gentle breeze and set down lightly by the roadside. Li Mubai took the reins himself and began driving the carriage. He said calmly, "This is a fine steed, capable of traveling 1,000 miles in a day." Then, something astonishing happened. The brown horse let out an excited neigh, its muscles bulging beneath its skin. In an instant, it grew nearly twice the size of an ordinary horse. Li Mubai's carriage sped off in a cloud of dust. Zhang Shan snorted, "You get down too." He sent his coachman to the roadside and took the reins himself. He muttered, "This horse is big and strong, not just a 1,000-mile steed, but it also has 6 legs." The same transformation occurred again. The horse sprouted 2 additional legs. Zhang Shan quickly caught up to Li Mubai's carriage. Li Mubai shouted angrily, "Shameless old thief. Since when do horses have 6 legs?" Zhang Shan chuckled, "I say it does, so it does." Li Mubai gritted his teeth. "Then my horse will have 8 legs. The transformation happened again, and Li Mubai's carriage instantly overtook Zhang Shan's. Zhang Shan's face darkened. "Shameless old thief, are you really going to fight me over a disciple? My carriage is as light as paper, floating with the wind." Li Mubai's eyes widened. This old thief is risking his life. Zhang Shan, riding his flying carriage, turned back and taunted loudly, "Shameless old thief, come and get me." Li Mubai was furious. "Enough is enough. I can't tolerate this anymore." He pointed to the sky. "My carriage can ride the clouds." Clouds gathered beneath the carriage wheels, and in the next moment, it soared into the sky. Hu Pingji stared in disbelief, watching as the 2 carriages disappeared into the horizon. He swallowed hard. Scholars really know how to boast. Su Xinyan gazed at the sky, filled with longing. This isn't boasting. This is the Confucian virtue of integrity. It has another name, a mocking term coined by Master Jianjing after a drink, using literature to disrupt the law. In the Ministry of Justice's prison, Su Qian sat in chains, leaning against the cold wall. Based on the documents he had read in the archives, there were countless cases of injustice in the capital's yamen. These matters never reached the emperor's ears, and were always suppressed. But this was during the imperial examinations. Weren't they afraid of political repercussions? Su Qian cursed under his breath. "They want to deal with me quickly, then force my uncle to endure humiliation. To cover up the aftermath." Su Qian realized he had made a mistake. While the middle class lived comfortably, a single misstep against the powerful could lead to ruin. To live with dignity, he needed power and strength. At that moment, the cell door was knocked. The jailer sneered, "Come out, you're done for." He made a throat-slitting gesture. "It's time for your last meal." In the Ministry of Justice, the minister was reviewing case files when a sudden gust of wind blew the documents into his face. When he removed them, he noticed 2 carriages outside the yamen. Strangely, the horses were lying on the ground. The arrivals were none other than Zhang Shan and Li Mubai. Minister's son hurried out to greet them. "Esteemed sages, what brings you here? Esteemed sages, what brings you to the Ministry of Justice today?" Zhang Shan clasped his hands and said solemnly, "The Ministry of Justice has arrested one of my disciples today, Su Qian. I request that Minister Sun release him." Minister Sun broke out in a cold sweat. Arresting a student of Yunlu Academy? In the political arena, although the Imperial Academy had suppressed Yunlu Academy to the point of humiliation, the Imperial Academy was an official institution of the court. But Yunlu Academy controlled the Confucian cultivation system, and was not a soft target to be easily manipulated. The old scholars of Yunlu Academy were notoriously protective of their own. Unless their so-called disciple had truly committed a crime, who in the Ministry of Justice would dare provoke them? Before Minister Sun could respond, a bailiff rushed in, panicked. Minister Sun. A group of white-robed alchemists from the Sishianjian are forcing their way into the yamen. We can't stop them. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Qing and his group barged in. Minister Sun, we are here to demand the release of someone. Hearing this, Minister Sun's heart sank. Who? Su Qian was unjustly arrested by the Ministry of Justice today. Minister Sun's cold sweat intensified. Su Qian again? Who exactly is this person? Not only did he attract the great scholars of Yunlu Academy, but now even Master Jianjing's disciples are here? In the Great Feng Empire, no one wanted to offend Master Jianjing. Even Yunlu Academy, which prided itself on being the orthodox Confucian school, had to endure Master Jianjing's drunken mockery of using literature to disrupt the law. They could only grit their teeth and accept it. The officials of the Ministry of Justice whispered among themselves. What's going on? Who is Su Qian? Are you out of the loop? Do you know about the tax silver case? The one who solved it was Su Qian, but he's just a martial artist. How is he connected to Confucianism and the Sishianjian? Strange. There's no record of Su Qian in the official documents. Minister Sun's face darkened. Who made the arrest? An official quickly pointed to a man in a green robe. It was Officer Huang. Officer Huang felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Minister, the situation was urgent. I didn't have time to obtain the arrest warrant. Young Master Zhou submitted a petition, claiming that a thug had assaulted him in public, and threatened to spill his blood within 5 steps. Song Qing had been using his observation technique to monitor Officer Huang, checking if he was lying. Officer Huang continued, the main reason is that this person is a martial artist, and the nephew of Su Pingji of the Imperial Guards. He has the ability to flee from justice, so I decided to arrest him first. Li Mubai stepped forward, and said sternly to Officer Huang, the sage said, a gentleman should be upright. In the next moment, Officer Huang felt his heart pounding violently. Blood rushed to his face, and he was overwhelmed with shame for lying. He despised his deceitful self, and his mind protested fiercely against his despicable behavior. His mouth, too, rebelled against his will, speaking uncontrollably. Young Master Zhou wants Su Qian dead. He wants him to die in the Ministry of Justice, to vent his hatred. I wanted to curry favor with young Master Zhou. Officer Huang collapsed to the ground, sweat pouring from his forehead. After speaking, he felt a strange sense of relief. Minister Sun's face turned completely dark. He said coldly, issue my order. Release him immediately. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Su Qian was presented with a confession that twisted the facts. If he signed it, the lightest punishment would be exile. But with young Master Zhou's influence, he could easily be sentenced to execution. Young Master Zhou extended 2 fingers, saying, first, confess and sign the confession. Second, try every torture device here, then confess and sign. Su Qian's heart sank. It was clear they intended to destroy him. Zhou Li looked at him with a mocking expression. Really scary, huh? What if I decide to spill blood within 5 steps again? The old man sneered coldly. Young master, don't worry. He's just an ant. I can crush him with a single slap. Su Qian gritted his teeth. This situation was not looking good. And where was Chu Kaiwei? Did that bastard Wang even go to the Sishianjian? If he did, the book I wrote was supposed to be extremely enticing. How could he not be tempted after reading it? Zhou Li was enjoying Su Qian's current expression. I heard you were raised by your uncle, Su Pingji. You must be very close. I have reason to suspect that this whole thing was orchestrated by you and your uncle. Su Qian's temple throbbed with anger. This bastard wasn't satisfied with just destroying him. He wanted to drag his uncle down too. At that moment, the cell door opened, and a cold voice rang out. This is the Ministry of Justice. If young Master Zhou wants to interrogate a prisoner, please return to the Ministry of... Zhou Li glared at the green-robed official. Who are you? How dare you interrupt me? The official replied, by order of the Minister of Justice, Su Qian is to be released immediately. Su Qian breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the Ministry of Justice had come to his rescue. The bailiff removed Su Qian's handcuffs, and Su Qian stretched lazily. You should be glad you didn't torture me. Let me reintroduce myself. I am Master Jianjing's newly accepted disciple. Zhou Li and the old man's faces turned pale. How is that possible? If he really were Master Jianjing's disciple, the tax silver case wouldn't have implicated the Su family. But in the tax silver case, he successfully refined counterfeit silver. Faced with such an alchemical genius, it's not impossible for Master Jianjing to make an exception and take him as a disciple. The old man glanced at the white-robed alchemists from the Sishianjian, and it seemed he had found his answer. Su Qian scanned the room, noticing that was she tied up with something else, and had sent her fellow disciples to rescue him? Su Qian grinned and clasped his hands. Su Qian greets my senior brothers. Song Qing was a bit confused. Senior brothers? But he quickly caught on. Did you write the blue book? Su Qian nodded. He glanced around. This isn't the place to talk. Once we leave the Ministry of Justice, senior brother can ask me anything. I will answer truthfully, and without holding back. Zhou Li watched the scene with growing panic. He whispered to Minister Sun, Why are the people from the Xixianjian here? Minister Sun replied indifferently. They came directly to demand his release. Zhou Li's legs went weak. The old man pointed to the two great scholars and asked, "What about them?" Minister Sun replied in the same tone, "They're also here to demand his release." The two men were thunderstruck. Was the Zhou family about to be ruined? What kind of monster had they provoked? At that moment, Li Mubai spoke up, "So you're Su Qian?" Zhang Shan, saying, "I am Cizio's teacher. Do not worry about the road ahead lacking friends. Who in the world does not know you? Did you write that?" Su Qian clasped his hands and bowed. "This humble junior wrote it. Please forgive my presumptuousness." Song Qing urged from behind, "I really don't want to stay here any longer. The matter is settled. Let's return to the Xixianjian." Everyone watched as Su Qian left. Zhou Li breathed a sigh of relief. That monster was finally gone. But then Su Qian stopped in his tracks, turned around, and glared at the two members of the Zhou family. "There's still one thing I haven't dealt with. In ancient society, strength was the only truth." Su Qian turned back expressionlessly. Zhou Li was startled. He quickly grabbed Minister Sun, begging him to intervene. But Minister Sun turned away, shaking off his grip. Su Qian took the shackles from the bailiff's hands, playing with them silently. Then, with a forceful swing, he smashed them into Zhou Li's forehead, causing blood to spurt out. Su Qian said coldly, "I told you there would be blood within 5 steps. It really happened." As Zhou Li was on the verge of death, he looked at the old man. With great difficulty, he uttered, "Uncle Chun, save me." Then he collapsed heavily to the ground. The old man's patience seemed to have reached its limit. The veins on his forehead bulged. Su Qian watched expressionlessly as the old man said, "Kill me, in front of my senior brothers and the officials from the Ministry of Justice, in front of the two great scholars. Kill me, this insignificant ant. Hurry up." The old man stood there. The anger on his face receded like a tide. He staggered back a few steps. At this moment, Su Qian confirmed his suspicions. Indeed, only an official's offspring can deal with another official's offspring. Su Qian bathed in the early winter sunlight. He felt as if he had been reborn. At this moment, Su Erlang and Su Ershu arrived belatedly on fast horses. Su Qian had just left the government. Su Qian happily called out, "Uncle." Seeing that he was unharmed, Su Pingji felt completely relieved. However, he was puzzled. Why had the person he met 4 days ago also come? Su Xinyan clasped his hands in gratitude and said, "Thank you, teacher. Thank you, Mr. Mubai." At this moment, Zhang Shan said with regret, "Your eldest brother is so talented. Why did he end up becoming a yamen runner?" Su Xinyan glanced at Su Qian, who was standing beside him, and said, "Eldest brother, what do you think?" But the next moment, Su Qian's hand was taken by Li Mubai. "Mingyan, would you be interested in joining Yunlu Academy to study the Tao?" Zhang Shan felt sour, thinking, "This shameless old thief beat me to it." And he even had the nerve to call him Ningyan so affectionately, even though they've known each other for less than half an hour. Zhang Shan pushed him aside and said, "Why not join my school instead? Wouldn't it be even better if you both came together?" Seeing that Su Qian hadn't agreed, the two of them continued to hold onto Su Qian's hands, refusing to let go. "What's going on here?" Su Qian glanced at his cousin, who turned away, ignoring Su Qian's confusion. Not daring to agree, Su Qian said, "Esteemed seniors, your favor towards Ming, though I practice martial arts, the sea of learning is boundless. But the sea of learning is boundless, and I do have a talent for studying. If I were to join the academy, I would surely surpass Cizio in no time." Upon hearing this, Su Cizio snorted coldly, his tone filled with pride. "Teacher and Mr. Mubai are interested in your poetry, such as Ode to the Sun Palace of Minyang Pavilion." After saying this, Su Cizio's expression stiffened, not daring to look at his teacher or Li Mubai. The teacher drank Li Mubai's Minyang Pavilion, Songyang Palace's Qinzhou. So that's what Yang Palace is like. Su Qian, upon hearing this, already had an idea in mind. Paying attention to Chen Yin, he understood the intentions of the two great scholars. The path to officialdom in Yunlu Academy is extremely difficult. If one cannot become a high-ranking official, naturally, they won't be recorded in history books. At this moment, the role of Su Qian's poetry becomes even more prominent. These old men are really cunning. Su Qian's mouth twitched, feeling somewhat indignant, because they took him as a disciple, not because of his handsome appearance or strong character, but because of his teacher. The two great scholars, thick-skinned and unyielding, smiled without change. Su Qian quickly clasped his hands in gratitude. "Thank you for your kindness, sirs. Ningyan is dedicated to learning and would be disrespectful to decline. Recently, I was struck by inspiration, and I've been brewing a few good poems. Once I settle the current matter, I will visit Yunlu Academy to pay my respects to both teachers." The two great scholars' minds immediately became active. "The more we look at this student, the more adorable he seems. In that case, we will wait for you at Yunlu Academy." After Zhang Shan finished speaking, he glanced at Su Xinyan and said, "It's been a year since you gained enlightenment, yet you still haven't broken through to— Go home and copy the sage's quotations 300 times. Submit them to me in a week." Su Xinyan was thunderstruck. Su Qian couldn't help but add insult to injury. Zhang Shan turned around, This old man can cover 30 zhang in one step. With a single step, he disappeared. Su Qian was dumbfounded. Where did that senior go? Li Mubai gritted his teeth. That old thief is deliberately showing off in front of my disciple. He drew a circle on the ground with his toe, glanced at Su Qian, and said, within 3 inches of this old man, this space does not belong to this place. It belongs to the city gate. After saying this, his figure suddenly disappeared. Su Qian widened his eyes. Cijiao, what realm are these 2 great scholars at? Su Xinyan, still struggling to break free from the despair of copying the sage's quotations 300 times. Uncle Su said, Xinyan mentioned the Confucian realm of no virtue, no conduct. Su Qian was shocked. Is it possible that as long as I brag enough, there's nothing in the world? What could make Su Qian look so smug? Of course, it's the phrase, Big Brother's Diaochan is at his waist. The Confucian realm of no virtue, no conduct, can regulate people's behavior and actions, using words to manipulate others. The core ability of this realm is the initial mastery of the true essence of words become law, allowing one to somewhat alter the laws of nature. Therefore, it is also known as using literature to disrupt law. Su Pingji said enviously, every major system has its divine intent, but only martial artists are known for their fierce and combative nature. That's why martial artists are considered crude. Su Qian looked at Su Xinyan with burning eyes. Brother, I've treated you well, haven't I? Su Xinyan was speechless. Big brother, can you say that again while touching your conscience? Su Qian ignored this, still looking full of longing, and said, brother, I have a request. If one day you reach the realm of virtue and conduct, I need you to say to me, Big brother, where is Diaochan? And I'll reply, Big brother's Diaochan is at his waist. Su Erlang couldn't stand this shameless cousin anymore, and simply stormed off in a huff. Song Qing, who had been watching all along, also couldn't take it anymore. He coughed twice and interrupted. Can we go now? The Star Observation Tower is the tallest building in the capital. The manpower and resources spent on its construction amounted to 1/3 of the Great Feng Dynasty's annual tax revenue. It was designed and built by the 4 heavenly alchemists, in collaboration with the imperial court, taking 12 years to complete. It is truly one of a kind in the world. Anyone seeing the Star Observation Tower for the first time would consider it a magnificent and majestic marvel. But Song Qing wondered, why did Su Qian, who was also seeing the tower for the first time, look so unimpressed? Why is that? Su Qian, having lived in modern times, had seen all kinds of skyscrapers, but he still explained, my uncle often says that I've always been calm and composed since childhood, unfazed even by a mountain collapsing in front of me. This might be my natural talent. On the 7th floor of the Star Observation Tower, he met Chu Kaiwei, whom he had met once before. Her table was filled with food. Why did you cause trouble again? Chu Kaiwei asked, puffing her cheeks. Su Qian casually picked up a skewer of fish balls, about to answer, when Chu Kaiwei glared at him, then slapped away his hand with her small palm, her big eyes filled with vigilance. You haven't eaten yet, have you? Senior brother Song. Take him back, and bring him back after he's eaten. Su Qian felt as if he was seeing what Su Linin would look like when she grew up. At this moment, Chu Kaiwei spoke up. The tax silver case is over. Do you know who swapped your uncle's tax silver? Su Qian shook his head. The one who swapped the tax silver was Lu Changji, a 1,000 household officer from the Yudao Guard, along with Zhang Xing, a secretary from the Ministry of Revenue. I heard that the Minister of Revenue, Zhou Xianping, is their backer. Su Qian almost couldn't hold back a curse. A surge of electricity seemed to flash through his mind, and he instantly understood many things. No wonder Zhou Li was determined to kill me after hearing my name, because I solved the tax silver case, ruining his father's plans. So he wanted revenge. Perhaps what happened today was part of his long-standing scheme. Zhou Shilong's residence is in the inner city, far from here. Yet, Zhou happened to stroll near the Su residence. Unless he was deliberately lingering around the Su, Zhou must have investigated me. Then how could he not know what Linyue looks like? Harassing the Liang family's daughter was just an act. His real goal was to pick a fight, using it as an excuse to destroy me. Although he passed the spiritual realm test, killing an insignificant virtual would still be easy for him. Could I possibly shake a high-ranking official like the Minister of Revenue? It seems that from the day I solved the tax silver case, I had already offended the Minister of Revenue, and here I was, thinking of staying away from trouble, living as a wealthy man with a house full of wives and concubines, leading a dull and unremarkable life. If it weren't for Erlang needing to deliver something to the Academy elders, and if I hadn't suddenly been inspired a few days ago to jot down some chemistry knowledge from memory, I might already be dead. I wouldn't even understand the real reason for my death, thinking it was just because I offended some spoiled noble. The series of coincidences is just too strange. Su Qian's heart sank. Was it luck? The luck I have has really been a great help. Su Qian suddenly had an idea. Kaiwei, can you sense fortune? Chu Kaiwei swallowed the food in her mouth and said, I can. 8th grade alchemists are called fortune masters. Fortune sensing is one of the most basic abilities of alchemists. All the subsequent divine arts are built upon the foundation of fortune sensing. But, do you know why alchemists aren't called fortune masters, but healers? Su Qian turned his head away, not interested in the question, but he still played along, asking, it's not because you alchemists all have a heart for saving lives, is it? Chu Kaiwei straightened her small back, putting on a serious expression, seemingly enjoying the feeling of being a teacher. She said, everything in the world has its fortune. Humans are the most complex. The 8 sufferings and 7 emotions of life are all part of fortune. Healers save lives, and inevitably come into contact with birth, aging, sickness, and death. Over time, they develop the ability to see through fortune. Su Qian liked this kind of girl who was open and honest, so he asked, can you take a look at my fortune? Chu Kaiwei closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, her dark, bright eyes were filled with a faint light, which instantly filled her pupils. Su Qian felt a chill run down his spine, as if needles were pricking his back, making him extremely uncomfortable. After a moment, Chu Kaiwei slowly closed her eyes, and said, your fortune is a pale red mixed with black energy. Su Qian quickly. Red means you are a government official, but the pale color indicates you are a low-ranking official. The black energy symbolizes misfortune, which I think you are well aware of. Su Qian frowned, and tentatively asked, is there no other color, like the color of a chosen one? Chu Kaiwei quickly interrupted him, it's fine if you say that in front of me, but if someone else hears it, it would be a grave offense. Only the emperor can call himself the chosen one. Su Qian didn't care, thinking, if I don't have it, so be it. Then he casually reached for something, but Chu Kaiwei noticed, and slapped his hand away again. Trying to steal food again? Wait until I'm done eating, then you can have some. Su Qian was annoyed. You've already eaten half of it. Is your stomach a black hole? But suddenly, Su Qian remembered something, and asked, how is the Minister of Revenue doing now? In the Ministry of Revenue. A few days ago, Minister Zhou's memorial was suppressed by the emperor. As for the 2 who swapped the tax silver, they committed suicide to cover their crimes, so the evidence is gone. Su Qian muttered. But in this day and age, if the emperor really wants to kill someone, he doesn't need evidence. Su Qian took the opportunity to inquire about court affairs, and began asking Chu Kaiwei all sorts of questions. However, Chu Kaiwei wasn't very interested in court matters, so she didn't know much. Soon, Su Qian's questions annoyed her. Ugh, you're so annoying. We alchemists don't involve ourselves in court affairs. Su Qian sighed, feeling that he had hurt her pride as a teacher, but he didn't press further. Su Qian quickly changed the subject. How much did this table cost? I gave the shopkeeper 4 taels of silver, and got back 1 tael and 360 copper coins. Chu Kaiwei frowned. Then how much did I actually spend? Su Qian thought for a moment, but realized he couldn't figure it out either. Chu Kaiwei happily handed him a pastry, feeling a sense of camaraderie since Su Qian also couldn't do the math. Su Qian took a bite and commented, your food tastes average. Chu Kaiwei was a bit displeased. This is the best restaurant in the southern part of the city. But Su Qian's next words made her lose her appetite. I've had better. If you have time, come to my house, and I'll make something delicious for you. As a professional foodie, Chu Kaiwei's mouth watered at the mention of good food. Not long after, Su Qian and Chu Kaiwei went to the alchemy room. A group of white-robed alchemists stood in front of the experimental equipment, watching Song Qing operate. Song Qing looked serious, as countless times before. They had failed at this very step. Song Qing instinctively glanced at Su Qian beside him, and the other white-robed alchemists, including the big-eyed Chu Kaiwei, all turned their attention to Su Qian. Su Qian nodded expressionlessly, and Song Qing felt reassured. He snapped his fingers, releasing a bolt of lightning. To complete the final step of extracting the metal sodium, suddenly, Su Qian shouted, hold your breath. Everyone immediately followed his instruction without hesitation. The next moment, something astonishing happened. In the crucible, irregular silver-white chunks formed, indistinguishable from silver. The edges of the chunks were sticky, indicating incomplete transformation. They had inexplicably succeeded. Song Qing was even more puzzled. I didn't change anything. It's always been like this before. He quickly asked Su Qian if he knew the reason. Su Qian thought for a moment, realizing it was due to his own incredible luck. Last time, because he was near Chu Kaiwei, he had also succeeded in extracting metal sodium on the first try, but he couldn't tell Song Qing and the others this, so he smiled mysteriously and said, this question shouldn't be asked of me. A mature alchemist should learn to think independently. I believe you can figure out the key to the problem. Song Qing was stunned. The key to the problem? His mind raced, analyzing the previous failures, and this recent success. The earlier steps hadn't changed, so the real change must have been in the final step. Song Qing's body trembled with excitement. I understand. I understand. Everyone quickly asked what he meant. Song Qing explained. It's the intensity of the lightning strike. He then looked to Su Qian for confirmation. Su Qian smiled and nodded. I call it voltage. Song Qing was puzzled. Another term I've never heard before. I know what electricity is, but what is voltage? Su Qian began to explain. But the alchemists looked utterly confused. Su Qian sighed and decided to use an analogy. He picked up a teacup and poured the water out. Electricity is like water. It flows from high to low. If you pour this cup of water on someone, it won't hurt them. But if it's a waterfall, and someone stands under it, the force of the water could break their bones or even kill them. Electricity works the same way. I call this phenomenon voltage. The alchemist's eyes lit up with understanding. A young alchemist, filled with curiosity, asked, is this also written in that alchemy manual? Su Qian nodded solemnly, yes. That alchemy manual is something only I have read and studied. I had someone send the contents to the C. Tianjin's notes. The alchemists were in awe, realizing the depth of Su Qian's knowledge. But it's just a drop in the ocean. That ancient alchemy manual not only contains knowledge, but also many unheard of alchemical techniques. And I have decided to share this. The white-robed alchemists erupted in excitement, unable to contain their enthusiasm, but it wasn't free. Su Qian spoke confidently, never forget, the principle of alchemy is equivalent exchange. Song Qing nodded, agreeing with Su Qian's reasoning. He then spoke on behalf of his fellow alchemists. How much silver do you want? Su Qian frowned, vulgar. Alchemy cannot be measured. He silently added in his heart, the most expensive things are those that appear free. In the Chang'an County government office, Su Lingyue clutched a handkerchief, sobbing softly, seeing the tearful beauty. The constables' hearts ached. They hadn't expected Su Mingyan to have such a beautiful younger sister. Old Wang quickly stepped forward to comfort her. Miss Su, don't worry. The centurion will find a way to save Ningyan. Everyone else also chimed in with words of comfort. Su Lingyue was slightly surprised, seeing the constable's genuine anger and concern. It seemed her elder brother had a good relationship with his colleagues. Old Wang, noticing her surprise, smiled and said, Ningyan is a man worthy of respect. Su Lingyue was taken aback, then softly asked, Officer Wang, can you tell me about my elder brother? Old Wang paused for a moment, then lowered his voice unconsciously. People like us. Our hands are never clean. Not harming ordinary people is considered having a conscience. As for the wealthy merchants, squeezing them for profit is just natural, isn't it? But your elder brother doesn't do that. Whether it's commoners or merchants, he never extorts or blackmails them. A while ago, considering the Su family's I decided to take him to make some extra money. He agreed with a smile, and afterward, I gave him 5 taels of silver, but he later quietly returned the money to the person. If you say he's naive, doesn't he understand the saying water that's too clear has no fish? But if you say he's not naive, he's very good at handling relationships, getting along well with everyone. He's very shrewd. That's why everyone is upset that he's in trouble. Su Lingyue listened intently, her image of her elder brother growing taller, brighter, and more majestic. She had always admired Su Xinyan, because all occupations are lowly, only her mother had always instilled in her that Su Xinyan was the only scholar in the Su family, the future pillar of the family. This admiration peaked this autumn, when Su Xinyan passed the imperial examination. But then the tax silver case happened, and the entire family was imprisoned. In their despair, it was her elder brother who carved a path to survival for the family. And with everything that had happened recently, she realized just how reliable her elder brother was. At that moment, someone entered the room. Su Lingyue quickly stood up. It was Su Ershu and Su Xinyan. Zhu Xianling arrived shortly after. He looked at Su Xinyan and asked, How is Mingyan? Su Xinyan replied, He's fine now. I asked my teacher, Mr. Mu Bai, and the white-robed alchemist from the C. Tianjin. Zhu Xianling was shocked. Su Ershu also seemed to have found an answer. No wonder the white-robed alchemists were there. Su Lingyue was also surprised. Since when does second brother know people from the C. Tianjin? Zhu Xianling immediately switched into his seasoned bureaucrat mode, praising and flattering Su Pingshi. Su Ershu clearly enjoyed the attention. Su Xinyan coughed at an inopportune moment, interrupting their mutual admiration. You seem to have misunderstood something. Mr. Mu Bai wasn't invited by me. He came because of my elder brother's connections. I don't know the white-robed alchemist from the C. Tianjin either. They were also brought in by my elder brother. Everyone was stunned, their minds filled with disbelief. Su Lingyue smiled softly. Her elder brother seemed to be getting more and more mysterious. At the C. Tianjin, the 4th disciple, Song Qing, was a genius in the field of alchemy. He was also an eccentric among alchemists, a fanatic enthusiast, known as the alchemy maniac. He was obsessed with the alchemy of living beings. Su Qian was invited to Song Qing's alchemy lab, which was filled with strange and bizarre objects. But the most striking thing was the living cat made entirely of wood. This great creation had been born not long ago. Song Qing had fused the cat with a tree, hoping to achieve the ability to regrow its head, like a tree would after being cut. In fact, Song Qing had come close to success. Even if its head was cut off, it would grow back within 3 days. But the only failure was that it had completely turned into a tree, unable to move or think, and could only be kept alive in water. Song Qing looked at Su Qian with burning eyes. What do you think of my idea? Su Qian didn't answer, but his gaze at Song Qing became strange. Song Qing frowned, feeling disappointed. Do you also think there's a problem? Su Qian eventually decided to comfort Song Qing. I just think you're going in the wrong direction. I've also thought about this kind of alchemy, but I named it hybrid technology. Hybrid technology? Song Qing chewed on the term, his eyes growing brighter. Su Qian continued, we can start small, hybridizing similar species. For example, crossbreeding 2 different types of cats to produce a completely new species. Maybe it will result in a new, superior breed, or maybe it will go the other way. But that's the charm of alchemy, don't you think? Song Qing became excited immediately. I believe alchemy isn't limited to inanimate objects. I think living beings are also within the realm of alchemy. That's why I transformed this cat. But my teacher disagrees. He says life is not within the domain of alchemy. For that, he even confined me for a long time. Su Qian thought to himself, well done, Master Jianzheng. But he still said, if you want to refute Master Jianzheng without getting confined again, I have a suggestion. You can start with plants. Plants are also life, but their nature is much simpler. In the ancient alchemy manual, I saw a technique that aligns with your idea. At this point, Su Qian stopped speaking. Song Qing, having heard only half of it, felt extremely uncomfortable. Please, continue. But Su Qian pretended not to hear. Senior brother Song, your collection here is quite impressive. Then he hinted, the principle of alchemy remains unchanged. Song Qing immediately understood Su Qian's meaning. I can give you 3 gifts. Su Qian gave him a thumbs up. Song Qing picked up a crossbow. Given your current alchemy level, I think this item suits you. Its most valuable feature is that it's engraved with a formation, which enhances the power of the arrows. It can pose a threat to even a spirit refinement realm expert, but it can only be used 3 times. After that, the formation. Su Qian's heart stirred. This is a magical artifact. His uncle had once told him that during the Shanhai Pass battle, the Great Feng Dynasty's cannons had played a crucial role. Half of the cannon's power came from gunpowder, and the other half from formations. Magical artifacts were unique weapons of the Great Feng Dynasty, and the reason the dynasty dared to claim itself as the rightful ruler of the world. Song Qing, adhering to the principle of knowledge sharing, answered Su Qian's question. Do you know what a 4th grade alchemist is called? Su Qian shook his head. He didn't even know what the 7th grade of his own martial system was called. Song Qing said, it's called a true master. What alchemists create are ordinary objects, but a true master can create magical artifacts. Su Qian nodded, understanding the distinction. Song Qing continued, the things alchemists create are mundane, but a true master's creations are extraordinary. A true master, through their profound understanding of formations, can turn ordinary objects into magical artifacts. Su Qian seemed to understand a little. Alchemists have 9 grades, with the pharmacist laying the foundation for the 8th grade fortune master. The fortune master, in turn, lays the groundwork for the 7th grade feng shui master. But the feng shui master has no direct connection to the 6th grade alchemist. In fact, the 6th grade alchemist works in tandem with the 4th grade true master. The alchemist creates powerful weapons, which the true master then refines into magical artifacts. Su Qian sighed in admiration. This system is quite impressive. No wonder Master Jianzheng holds such a high status in the Great Feng Dynasty. I must win Chu Caiwei's heart, not for any particular reason, but just to find genuine love. In this cold society, Su Qian secretly made up his mind. The second magical artifact Song Qing presented was a protective mirror. Its most valuable feature was the formation engraved on it, which could withstand a full power strike from a Qi refinement realm expert. It could endure 6 such strikes, 3 from a spirit refinement realm expert, and 1 from a copper skin iron bone realm expert. The last item was called bone burning poison. When applied to a sword, it could kill a spirit refinement realm expert. It was ineffective against the copper skin iron bone realm, as the sword couldn't penetrate their skin. Su Qian nodded. I really like these 3 items. As the saying goes, when you take someone's gift, your hand feels short. When you eat someone's food, your mouth feels soft. Having accepted Song Qing's 3 magical artifacts, Su Qian shared the ancient grafting technique with Song Qing. But this wasn't entirely Su Qian's fault. Although he had extensive theoretical knowledge, his practical skills were abysmal. But now it didn't matter, as Song Qing, the alchemy maniac, could handle the practical side. If Song Qing failed in the end, it would be due to his own lack of ability. But if he succeeded, all the credit would go to Su Qian. Song Qing, oblivious to Su Qian's scheming, was happily immersed in the ocean of knowledge. Su Qian walked briskly, down the steps of the star observation tower, carrying the 3 magical artifacts. He thought to himself, I could use one of these artifacts as payment to open the heavenly gate and advance to the 8th grade. But these items are all so useful, I'm reluctant to part with them. However, he truly felt that only free things are the eternal source of human happiness. Today is a good day. I'll reward myself by going to the brothel tomorrow to listen to some music. Speaking of which, if I exchanged these 3 artifacts for silver, I could really show off in front of Shunshan. Thinking of this, Su Qian became even happier. He skipped down the stairs, singing a song. The manager is so beautiful, and the lyrics sounded even more fitting. If it weren't for the inappropriate setting, he would have danced a little. But as Su Qian turned a corner, he encountered a group of strangers. They exchanged glances, and Su Qian's singing abruptly stopped. He expressionlessly stepped aside, feeling goosebumps rise all over his body. If it weren't for his thick skin, he would have died of embarrassment on the spot. On the lower steps stood 3 people. The one in the middle wore a dark green robe, with graying temples, an elegant demeanor, handsome features, and eyes as deep as an abyss, carrying the weight of years of experience. As the 3 passed by Su Qian, the effeminate young man sneered, glancing at him sideways. In that instant, Su Qian felt as if something terrifying was watching him, causing his heart to race uncontrollably. The 3 continued up the stairs, disappearing around the corner. Only then did Su Qian breathe a sigh of relief. That guy seemed to look down on me, and there was a hint of hostility. Was it because my song lyrics were too arrogant? From now on, there are some things you need to be mindful of, especially in public settings. But then, Su Xian came downstairs singing, dancing, and rapping. I want the sky to no longer obscure my vision, the earth to no longer bury my heart, and all the gods in the heavens to vanish into thin air. Meanwhile, the 3 individuals had reached the 7th floor. Song Qing quickly clasped his hands in greeting. However, Chu Kaiwei was still happily eating and didn't pay any attention. She ignored them. The leader of the 3 was Ning Weiyuan, the head of the Night Watchman. The other 2 were Golden Gongs of the Night Watchman. The one on the left was Nan Gongqianrong. The one on the right was Yang Yin. Song Qing hurriedly invited Duke Wei to take a seat. My teacher had too much to drink and is currently taking an afternoon nap. Please wait for a moment. Duke Wei didn't mind. He took a sip of tea and said, while climbing the stairs earlier, I encountered an interesting young man. He doesn't seem to be a disciple of the 4 heavenly swords, does he? Chu Kaiwei was about to speak, but was stopped by Song Qing. He's just an insignificant little figure, but quite amusing. The Night Watchmen are renowned, and in the eyes of the officials, they are like wolves and tigers. They don't need a reason to target someone. This organization is involved in investigations, arrests, and other activities. They also participate in gathering military intelligence and subverting enemy forces. They don't belong to the 6 ministries, nor the military system. They are the Royal Intelligence Organization. All officials in the Great Feng Dynasty have heard the saying, if you do nothing wrong during the day, you won't fear the Night Watchman at night. Song Qing couldn't be sure whether Su Xian had inadvertently offended this powerful eunuch with immense authority. Duke Wei asked curiously, how is that young man interesting? Song Qing hesitated for a moment before replying, a genius in alchemy. If he hadn't taken the wrong path in cultivation, if he had joined the 4 heavenly swords, his name would have been recorded in history. Nan Gongqi. While Duke Wei maintained a faint smile. Duke Wei nodded slightly. How high was Su Qian's status in his aunt's heart? In the inner courtyard, the servants were busy making winter cotton clothes. At this moment, Louis spoke softly, Madam. Yesterday, when I went to see the eldest young master, I noticed he doesn't have any winter clothes. The aunt glanced at her personal maid and coldly snorted. What are you trying to say? Louis lowered her head and whispered, how about we make him a set as well? The aunt snorted. Not a chance. That little brat seizes every opportunity to annoy me, asking me to make clothes for him? No way. He comes here to eat every day, but never contributes to the household expenses. With his appetite, he's almost eating us out of house and home. Originally, she had considered improving her relationship with her unlucky nephew, since he had saved the family's lives. But that little brat kept finding ways to provoke her with his words, always picking fights with her. As the old saying goes, a wolf travels 1,000 miles to eat meat, while a dog travels 1,000 miles to eat dirt. At this moment, an anxious voice interrupted. While the aunt was furiously criticizing her nephew, the steward rushed in, panting heavily. Madam, something's happened. The aunt froze in place upon hearing this. Not long after, the aunt, tears streaming down her face, rushed into the Su family's inner hall. There, she saw Su Pingji holding the sleeping little one, with Su Xinyan and Su Lingyue standing beside him. Seeing his wife rushing over in a panic, Su Pingji quickly reassured her, it's all right. Lin Yin is just asleep. He handed their youngest daughter to his wife. The aunt held her daughter tightly, and after confirming she was fine, she let out a sigh of relief. But she didn't leave. With a trembling voice, she asked, what happened? How did she end up like this after going out? And what about Ning Yin? Su Pingji sighed and recounted everything that had happened that morning to his wife in detail. Ning Yin has already been released. The matter has been resolved for now. If it weren't for Ning Yin, Ning Yu and Lin Yin would have been in danger. He may be stubborn, but he's never treated his family poorly. If it were someone else, would they risk their life for our daughter like he did? You always look at him with disdain, thinking he spends too much of our money, thinking that since we raised him, it's fine to scold him a little. You think his words are unpleasant, that he's always opposing you. But have you ever thought about how he feels? Living under someone else's roof for 20 years. Do you think that's easy? Do you think he isn't sensitive about it? When Mingyue was bullied, he rushed to fight for her. Thankfully, this time it ended without disaster. But if Ming Yin hadn't come back, wouldn't you have felt heartbroken? This time, the aunt was left speechless. The tears at the corner of her eyes said it all. As Su Lingyue listened, tears streamed down her face again. She felt that she must repay her eldest brother for the rest of her life. Su Xinyan looked at his usually strong-willed mother, whose eyes were now filled with fear and regret. Although his mother always or that unlucky guy, deep down, she still cared for her eldest brother. After all, they had raised him for nearly 20 years. No matter what, some affection had grown over time. Su Pingji glanced at his son and snorted. If it were your son accompanying them this time, he might have ended up being bullied by Lu Zhong as well. Su Erlang was filled with confusion. Is it really necessary? Not long after, the aunt carried the little one into the room to sleep. Suddenly, she said, Lu Yi, reduce the winter clothes for the master and Erlang by 1 set each. When the eldest young master returns, take his measurements. Lu Yi was a bit incredulous. Madam, have you changed your mind? The aunt snorted in your eyes. Am I such a harsh aunt? Lu Yi thought to herself, aren't you? Meanwhile, Su Qian was grinding ink. Yes, he was about to start writing in his diary again. The author, adhering to the spirit of padding the word count, had given Su Qian the habit of keeping a diary. November 16th. This is a day worth remembering, because I have finally decided to give up the life of a wealthy, simple, unadorned, and dull. I need power and strength. I have 2 ideas for this. First, change my cultivation path, and try cultivating the Confucian Tao. If I can please the 2 great scholars, I believe they will support me wholeheartedly. This would be much better than struggling alone. On the martial path, Su Qian sighed. Other transmigrators use poetry to show off, but I use it for transactions. Perhaps this is what makes me, the chosen one, unique, but the downside is, I have to relive the fear of being dominated by the pressures of high school life, and I may not be cut out for studying. I'm almost 20 years old. Changing my cultivation path might be a bit late. Second, I could try harder to win over Kaiwei from the Tianjian. With the support of Supervisor Jianzheng, I could live comfortably without much effort. This vision is beautiful, but it has its drawbacks. I might have to say goodbye to the life of having multiple wives and concubines, and I'd have to bid farewell to the pleasure quarters. This sacrifice is a bit too great. Third, I could sell the artifacts I obtained from the Tianjian to exchange for an opportunity to open the heavenly gate. The downside is that even with the artifacts, I might not be able to defeat Hu Bulang, and without a powerful backer, it would be difficult to make significant progress on the martial path. My second uncle has been stuck at the peak of the qi refining stage for nearly 10 years. That's the best example. For now, I'll cling to the thighs of the Tianjian and the Yunlu Academy while I plan my next move. I have a feeling that the turmoil of the tax silver case is far from over. At the front courtyard of the Su residence, Su Qian had just climbed over the wall when he saw Su Linyin practicing a wobbly horse stance, throwing punches left and right, while making sound effects for herself. Su Qian approached. He lightly kicked her little butt. What are you doing? The little one fell with a plop. The little bean got up, rubbing her butt and pointing at her eldest brother, shouting, I'm practicing martial arts. Big brother, are you challenging me? Su Qian was surprised, but soon realized that the events of the morning had left a shadow on her young heart. This 5-year-old child felt she should learn martial arts, so that if something like this happened again, she could help her big brother. Su Qian chuckled. Yes, I am. What are you going to do about it? The little bean glared at her brother. Father said, people should stand up for themselves. Martial arts are the same. It's called, what's it called again? Su Qian helped her out. Dignity. The little bean snorted, right? Dignity. I challenge you to a duel. She then ran over on her short little legs, waving her fists and yelling. Su Qian placed a hand on her forehead, and the little bean flailed, yelling and throwing wild punches. Su Qian found her annoying, and offered, how about I give you a chicken leg, and you admit defeat, okay? The little bean's eyes lit up. Okay, what about your dignity? As she munched on the chicken leg, she asked, Big brother, what's dignity? Su Qian felt a headache coming on. He patted her shoulder and said, you've got potential. In the study, Su Qian got straight to the point, seeking his uncle and cousin's opinion. What do you think about what happened this afternoon? Su Ershu looked somewhat confused. Isn't it over already? Su Xinyan frowned. Are you saying Zhou Li might seek revenge? Su Ershu waved his hand. No, No. Under normal circumstances, maybe, but today, with the great scholar from Yunlu Academy, and the white-robed figure from Si Tianjian present, I doubt Zhou would dare stir up trouble again. Su Qian said gravely, I just received news from Si Tianjian today. The mastermind behind the attack is Vice Minister Zhou. Su Xinyan pondered for a moment. So it seems, today's incident wasn't accidental, but a deliberate act of revenge by Zhou Li. Su Qian was pleasantly surprised. Not bad. You're quite sharp for a scholar who passed the imperial exams. If it were just Su Ershu, this discussion would be pointless, because when pushed to the limit, he would only say, if you're my brother, come fight with me. Truly a rough martial artist. But Su Xinyan, usually a gentle scholar, also had a fierce side. Faced with his elder brother's questioning, he immediately proposed, strike first to gain the upper hand, strike later, and suffer the consequences. Su Qian was shocked. It was hard to imagine Su Xinyan saying something so decisive, but as the head of the family, Su Ershu felt he could no longer remain silent. Abandon your naive and arrogant. Even if you were a top scholar, you couldn't afford to offend a vice minister of revenue. But as soon as he finished, his nephew coldly rejected his words. I think Erlang is right. We've offended not just Zhou Li, but Vice Minister Zhou Xianping. Zhou Li might not dare retaliate, but what about the vice minister? Not only did we ruin his plans, but we also injured his disciple. Anyone with a shred of pride wouldn't let this slide. Moreover, in Vice Minister Zhou's eyes, the Su family is no different from ants. He has no reason to spare us. Su Pingji still felt uneasy. We can't win against Vice Minister Zhou, even if you've befriended the white-robed figure from Si Tianjian, and Xinyan is a student of Yunlu Academy. With these two connections, as long as we keep our heads down, we should be fine. No one would dare provoke us. Su Qian reminded him, Uncle, you might not know this, but the white-robed figures from Si Tianjian don't interfere in court affairs. Su Ci continued, during the tax silver case, I wasn't even a student of Yunlu Academy. The reason Big Brother could return today is because Zhou Li was in the wrong, and his methods were too crude. But if Vice Minister Zhou were to act, and another tax silver case were to occur, he could legally have our entire family executed. Would Si Tianjian and Yunlu Academy really go against the law for us? Would they defy the laws of Great Feng for our sake? Feeling his authority as the head of the family challenged, Su Pingji frowned deeply. But how can we possibly deal with a Vice Minister of Revenue? He's a high-ranking official of the third rank. Su Qian sighed helplessly. I don't know either. I'm just a simple transmigrator. Su Qian turned his gaze to his handsome younger brother. What do you think, Erlang? Su Xinyan remained silent for a long time, before finally saying, I've been thinking about something. When the tax silver was stolen, the emperor was furious. Clearly, he values the silver greatly. He should have severely punished the culprits, but he didn't. I can think of two possibilities. First, Vice Minister Zhou has a powerful backer. Second, the emperor has some reservations, perhaps to maintain a delicate balance. Big Brother mentioned that a censor from the Ministry of Revenue impeached Vice Minister Zhou for embezzling treasury funds. Why didn't he impeach the other vice minister? Why not the Minister of Revenue? Su Qian was struck by a thought. Vice Minister Zhou's political enemies are targeting him. Su Xinyan nodded. My teacher once said that throughout history, the core of imperial strategy has always been balance. The emperor didn't move against Vice Minister Zhou, which likely means this involves factional struggles. Su Qian stroked his chin, deep in thought. Imperial strategies might work in normal times, but with the audit approaching, if we can find evidence against Vice Minister Zhou, there's a good chance we can take him down. The audit is an organization that even the emperor can't ignore. The core of Confucian political strategy is rationality. So Vice Minister Zhou's enemies won't let this go. Su Xinyan was surprised. He hadn't expected his rough older cousin to mention political strategy. Was this still the same cousin he knew? Su Qian thought to himself, I've just watched a lot of historical dramas. Su Xinyan asked in a probing tone, So, Big Brother, what do you think we should do? Su Qian internally sighed. You really can't stand losing, can you? If this were a female lead, this tsundere personality wouldn't be very appealing. I prefer a 36D coquettish and cute mature woman. Su Qian calmly said. Why did Vice Minister Zhou orchestrate the tax silver case? It couldn't have been for simple embezzlement, because he could embezzle at any time. Why risk it during such a critical moment? Unless he urgently needed a large sum of money to cover up a financial hole. And the reason for covering up that hole was to prepare for the audit. Su Xinyan raised an eyebrow. So, we need to find out the real reason. Why Vice Minister Zhou embezzled the tax silver. We need to solve the case, to expose Vice Minister Zhou's crimes, and bring him to justice. Su Qian was about to say this, when he noticed Su Xinyan's half-smiling, half-mocking expression. He decided not to voice his thoughts. At this moment, Su Ershu slapped his thigh, and stood up excitedly. I understand. So, we need to expose this matter, and make Zhou have nowhere to hide. He was thrilled, feeling like his brain had finally worked properly for once. Su Xinyan scolded father. do you think that with your position as a centurion, you can openly investigate a vice minister of revenue? Can you access the Ministry of Revenue's records? Su Dalong chimed in. Thank you, uncle, for sacrificing yourself to take the fall for us. After this double blow, Su Ershu decided it was best to stay quiet. After a round of discussion, Su Xinyan was somewhat dissatisfied that he hadn't outsmarted his cousin. He pressed further then, Big brother, what do you think we should do? Su Qian pondered for a moment. He uttered 4 words. Drive the tiger to devour the wolf. The main force against Minister Zhou isn't us. What we need to do is to be the final straw that breaks the camel's back. But as for how to do it, I haven't figured it out yet. Su Xinyan praised. Not bad, Han Shou. Taking a step back, we don't need to deal with Minister Zhou directly. A high-ranking official of the 3rd rank surely has both cunning and skill, and isn't someone we can handle right now. But as long as he's human, he'll have weaknesses. Su Qian's eyes lit up. He excitedly said, Zhou Li, in Su Xinyan's starry eyes. A flash of ruth. Yes, compared to Minister Zhou, Zhou Li, that stubborn fool, is easier to deal with. If the charges against him aren't sufficient, then we'll fabricate charges. We'll hand a knife to Minister Zhou's political enemies, and let them help us take down Zhou Xianping. With the imperial examination approaching, if Minister Zhou's son does something that incurs public outrage, as his father, Zhou Xianping will be held accountable. The emperor might protect him once, but he won't necessarily protect him a second time. At this point, Su Xinyan paused and said, this angle of attack is good, but they're not fools either. Framing and deceit might not work. Su Ershu listened as his son and nephew exchanged ideas, suddenly realizing that he, the head of the family, had been pushed to the edge of this secret discussion, completely unable to interject. But as his son's analysis unfolded layer by layer, Su Ershu's thoughts became clearer. The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Unable to contain his excitement, he slammed the table and said, Cigio, you have the talent to assist a ruler. Su Qian, hearing this, felt displeased. He took the opportunity to diss Su Xinyan. Isn't this why scholars are said to talk idly and mislead the country? Second brother, you're not exempt from this either. Su Erlang's mouth twitched. He retorted then, Big brother, please enlighten me. Su Qian remained calm. What we need to think about isn't how to scheme against Zhou Li, but to observe Zhou Li, gather information about him, and then compile it, boldly formulate a plan, and then carefully scrutinize the process to determine the plan's feasibility. Cigio, you have the status of a scholar, and can interact with scholars and officials. Use them to gather information about the officialdom. You go and collect intelligence on Zhou Li. No detail is too small to overlook. Uncle, the Zhou residence is in the inner city. You're usually responsible for patrolling both the inner and outer cities. You take charge of monitoring the Zhou residence's movements. Don't do it yourself. Find trusted subordinates to keep an eye on them. Where Zhou Li goes each day, what he does, and who he meets. I want to know everything. Su Ershu nodded confidently. Suddenly, he thought of something, and stared at Su Qian, asking, then what about you? Su Qian smiled mysteriously. I need to secure a backup plan for Su Fu. Cigio, let's discuss the details later. I also need to ask you about some things. I'll stay in your room tonight. At midnight, Su Xinyan whispered, Big brother, are you asleep? Su Qian replied, no, but then Su Xinyan said, Big brother, you're poking me. Su Qian was startled. But then, he heard Su Xinyan say, move your pig-like elbow away. Su Qian quickly moved his hand. Another silence followed, as they listened to each other's breathing. Su Qian asked, how long has it been since we last shared a bed? Su Xinyan thought for a moment. Since we were 10, after you started spending 100 taels on courtesans every year, and we had that argument during the new year, we grew distant. Su Qian sighed. I thought you'd stubbornly say, we've never shared a bed before. Su Qian couldn't help but feel emotional. Now we can still sleep together, but with Sister Lingyue, it's impossible forever. In Su Qian's heart, Auntie's position wasn't actually that bad. Tonight, as Su Qian and Su Xinyan shared a bed, they couldn't help but recall many past events. Su Qian sighed. Actually, it's not Auntie's fault. Uncle's job doesn't bring in much extra income. Despite Uncle's efforts, even with his salary, it's only a little over 200 taels a year. Half of it goes to me, and the other half covers your expenses. It's inevitable that Auntie feels resentful. Su Xinyan changed the subject. If we can't get through this crisis, the Su family might really be finished. If Minister Zhou doesn't fall, after the imperial examination, disaster will strike the Su residence. Su Qian reassured, I'll arrange a backup plan. At worst, after the imperial examination, we'll leave the capital as a family. Uncle and I are skilled. We won't have trouble making a living anywhere. But you, second brother, have studied hard for 10 years, and only just passed the provincial examination. Su Xinyan chuckled. Fame and fortune are just fleeting clouds. I am a scholar, reading the books of sages, cultivating the path of sages. How could I care about mere fame? Su Qian nodded in agreement. If heaven didn't give birth to Su Xinyan, the world would be in eternal darkness. The boat of friendship capsizes easily. Su Xinyan rolled over, taking all the blankets with him. No matter how much Su Qian called out, he didn't respond. The next morning, Su Lingyue opened her window, letting the first rays of morning sunlight into her room. She was enjoying the fresh air when she suddenly saw someone passing by her window. It was Su Qian. The siblings silently stared at each other for a few seconds. Su Qian's gaze unconsciously drifted downward. Su Lingyue screamed and shut the window. Su Qian thought with relief, my sister has grown up. Although I didn't raise her myself, at least I watched her grow up. In her room, Su Lingyue crouched on the floor, her face red as she hugged her chest. Her maid scolded, Miss, you need to change this habit. You should tidy up before opening the window. Now, the young master has seen you. Luckily, it's your own brother. If an outsider saw you, how would you live with yourself? Su Lingyue's cheeks flushed, her mind filled with the scene from earlier. Meanwhile, Su Lingyin was crouched on the ground, her small hands holding a toothbrush, seriously brushing her teeth, as if it were a major task. When Su Qian arrived, she mumbled through the foam, Big brother, good morning. Su Qian asked curiously, why are you brushing your teeth yourself? The little one replied seriously, Daddy said a man must be self-reliant to master martial arts. Su Qian was speechless. Do you know you're a girl? The little one looked innocent. I know, Su Qian said. Then do you know the difference between boys and girls? The little one asked, confused. What difference? Su Qian felt a bit troubled. This involves a biology lesson, and it would take forever to explain. Lingyin might not even understand, but Su Qian quickly came up with an idea. Simply put, boys grow up to be jokers, and girls grow up to be troublemakers. Su Lingyin suddenly understood, and happily said, no wonder Mom always calls me a troublemaker. She ran around the room in circles, cheerfully shouting, I'm a troublemaker. Su Qian silently closed the door, deciding that today's breakfast should not be eaten at home. The capital was bustling this morning, with breakfast stalls everywhere. Su Qian had his meal at a street-side breakfast stall, but when Su Qian tried to pay, the stall owner, seeing Su Qian in his official uniform, refused to take his money. Su Qian pointed at the empty plates. Are you sure? The stall owner swallowed hard. Su Qian's breakfast this morning, he ate enough for 4 or 5 people. The stall owner's heart ached, but he truly didn't dare to ask for money, unless he didn't want to set up his stall in this area anymore. Seeing this, Su Qian waved the stall owner away. I'll sit here for a while. You go away. Don't disturb me. The stall owner had no choice. He could only count himself unlucky. Today's big portion was a loss. The dynasty system had been corrupt for a long time. As long as corruption wasn't addressed, the lives of the common people wouldn't improve. Su Qian watched the stall owner's busy figure, recalling the look of pain in his eyes. As he dared not ask for money, he looked as pitiful as a beggar. Throughout history, the ones who harmed the common people the most were always the unseen ants that the powerful ignored. After finishing his meal, Su Qian silently left. The stall owner breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he's gone. Then he came over to clean up the dishes. But the next moment, the dishes were slammed onto the table. The stall owner hurriedly ran out, trying to catch up with the officer from earlier. But in the bustling street, Su Qian was already nowhere to be seen. He opened his mouth, his throat choked with something. For so many years, this was the first time he encountered an officer who paid for his meal. Not long after, Su Qian took leave from the yamen and returned home. He and Su Xinyan were going to Yunlu Academy, located on Qingyun Mountain, 60 li away. The mountain was home to the world-famous Yunlu Academy. The two rode side by side on the official road. Su Qian asked, Cijiao, I've always been curious. Is the sage a first-rank figure? Su Xinyan raised his chin proudly. Do you think I would know? Su Qian was speechless. If you don't know, you don't know. Why make such a proud expression? Su Qian rolled his eyes. He continued. How long did the sage live? Su Xinyan pondered. He lived to be 82 years old. Su Qian was surprised. A great sage, the founder of the Tao, even if not first rank, shouldn't be far off. Yet he only lived to 82? Although for ordinary people of this era, that's considered a long life. But in this world, where martial prowess is extraordinary, even the sage couldn't achieve immortality. Su Qian stopped his wild thoughts. The purpose of this trip was to find a backup plan. Before they took action, they needed to send the women of the family to Yunlu Academy. This way, even if their plan against the tiger and wolf failed, Yunlu Academy could protect the women of the family. But Su Xinyan said, Yunlu Academy doesn't take in outsiders. It's a rule. Even I can't convince my teacher to make an exception. Big brother, are you sure about this? Su Qian shook his head. Success depends on effort. Inside Yunlu Academy, the Grandmaster Li Mubai, who had sworn never to play chess again, stood with his hands behind his back, by the corridor, listening to the heated argument between his two friends. I made a mistake with this move. I want to take it back. Zhang Tai retorted. Once a move is made, it cannot be taken back. That's the rule. Chen Taizi, also known as Ping, one of the 4 great scholars of Yunlu Academy, was known for his talent in governance, his work, strategies for governing the country. Li Mubai watched their argument and shook his head. 2 amateurs. he interrupted their quarrel. Where's the dean? Zhang Sheng, his eyes fixed on the chessboard, said, the princess has... The dean is accompanying her. Shintai sighed. In 3 months, it will be the spring imperial examination, but the students' enthusiasm for studying is low. Last night, I walked around the dormitories. Only a few were burning the midnight oil, and the few lights I saw were focused on chessboards. As he spoke, he reached out and scattered the chess pieces on the board. Indulging in games leads to ruin. Zhang Shun was furious. If you lose, it's indulging in games. If you win, you gloat. You're just like Li Mubai, a sore loser. For the students studying at Yunlu Academy, the road ahead is destined to be difficult. Even if they pass the provincial or imperial examinations, it's still hard for them to rise quickly in the officialdom. They are often sent to remote, impoverished regions to serve, or left to rot in some obscure corner. This greatly dampens the enthusiasm of the academy students for the imperial examinations. Everyone fell silent for a moment. Zhang Shan said solemnly, this trend cannot continue. We must reignite the students' passion for the examinations. Chen Tai, with a serious expression, said, even if it's a struggle, we must persevere. Yunlu Academy cannot abandon the path to officialdom. Li Mubai suggested, let's hold a lecture to encourage learning. Have the dean address the students. Zhang Shun rubbed his forehead. The dean gives motivational speeches every year. The first time, it's inspiring, but now, it won't have much effect. Chen Tai stroked his beard and frowned. Then let's try a different approach. What do you think about writing essays? He proposed. Li Mubai shook his head. It's not worth the effort. Zhang Shun said, then it has to be poetry. Since ancient times, poetry has moved hearts. Composing a stirring poem would be far more effective than a lecture. But poetry in the Great Feng Dynasty has been in decline for a long time. If Yang Ziqian were still in Qingzhou, we could push this task onto him. Among us, he's the most skilled in this. Chen Tai smiled. Brother Jinyan is more suited to court politics than I am. Your skill at passing the buck is impressive. Just as they were about to argue again, Zhang Shun's servant hurried in. Master, your student, Su Zijio, has arrived. After the servant left, Zhang Shun began to show off. I recently took on a new student, Su Zijio's cousin. His talent is extraordinary. Li Mubai immediately added, he's also my student. Chen Tai's heart stirred. The poet who wrote, do not worry about lacking friends on the road ahead, for who in the world does not know you? You are all blinded by fame and fortune. Yang Ziqian's name will undoubtedly be remembered for this poem. It's truly enviable, but great works are rare. How many scholars produce only a handful of good poems in their lifetime? Even fewer are immortalized in history. To produce a line like, do not worry about lacking friends on the road ahead, for who in the world does not know you, is already a stroke of genius. It moves the heart. To expect 1 or 2 more such lines, so that both of you can be immortalized, is too focused on fame and glory. Over time, how will you preserve the righteous energy in your hearts? Works that are immortalized are not easily created. Moreover, the other party is not a scholar. To have produced one such poem by chance is already a great fortune. Zhang Sheng and Li Mubai seemed to realize their mistake. They had indeed been too gongli, so they both bowed in apology. Zhang Tai laughed. To recognize one's mistakes and correct them is a great virtue. The two brothers had come to Yunlu Academy seeking shelter, but, unexpectedly, they ended up in another one of Su Qian's show-stealing moments. Su Qian and Su Xinyan entered the hall. Both bowed and said, students greet the teachers. Li Mubai tentatively asked, Ning Yin, have you come to the academy because you have a masterpiece for me to appreciate? Su Qian shook his head and said, I have come to ask for a favor. Su Qian explained his purpose to the two teachers, but hid his intention to take revenge on Minister Hu. Li Mubai glanced at Zhang Sheng, who also looked troubled. He sighed. The academy prohibits outsiders from staying overnight. It's a rule. Su Xinyan said, but the princess often stays at the academy. Zhang Sheng shook his head. The princess is of a different status. Su Xinyan nodded. The academy prohibits outsiders from staying overnight, unless they are royalty. Su Qian almost laughed out loud. Second brother's sharp tongue is as cutting as ever. Li Mubai was embarrassed. Brother Jinyan, your student. I look forward to seeing him reach the Liming realm. Zhang Sheng's mouth twitched. Chen Tai smiled as he examined Su Qian. So, you are Su Mingyan, dressed in scholarly attire. Su Qian pretended to be a true scholar. I heard you have a talent for poetry. So how about this? If you can compose a poem on the spot that satisfies all 3 of us, I will personally allow the Su family's women to stay at the academy and ensure their safety. Hearing this, Su Qian felt reassured. Allowing the Su family's women to stay at the academy is not the main point. The key is his last sentence. Ensure their safety. That's the real purpose of our visit. Su Qian sighed inwardly. You're trying to get a free poem out of me. He didn't agree immediately, but instead carefully asked, should the poem be free-form or on a specific theme? The 3 great scholars exchanged glances. Zhang Shun said, encouraging learning. Su Qian sighed inwardly. Of course, it couldn't be free-form. Otherwise, I could have produced a timeless masterpiece in minutes. At the same time, he felt relieved. Because this topic isn't beyond my scope, with my limited literary knowledge, I can handle it. In the realm of encouraging learning, in terms of fame, the line in books, there are golden houses. In books, there are beauties like jade, would be appropriate. But if I remember correctly, this poem was written by a Song dynasty emperor. It carries a tone of enticing with fame and fortune, and the graduates of Yunlu Academy have always faced difficulties in their careers. When Su Xinyan passed the provincial examination, he lamented not knowing where he would be posted, some remote, impoverished region. If I copied this poem, wouldn't I be rubbing salt in Yunlu Academy's wounds? Seeing Su Qian remain silent for a long time, Su Xinyan's frown deepened. Among the three great scholars, Zhang Sheng and Li Mubai were eagerly waiting, while Chen Tai smiled and waited. Su Qian collected his thoughts. He clasped his hands and said, I will humbly present my work. Cijo, please grind the ink for me. Thinking of his terrible calligraphy, he felt embarrassed, so he simply asked Su Xinyan to write for him. Su Qian tapped the table a few times, and said, by the third watch, the lamp is lit. By the fifth, the rooster crows. This is the time for men to study. Black hair does not know the importance of early diligence. White hair will regret the delay in learning. After Su Xinyan finished writing, his face showed slight excitement. Li Mubai and Zhang Shen exclaimed simultaneously, what a great poem. Ning Yin truly has extraordinary poetic talent. By the third watch, the lamp is lit. By the fifth, the rooster crows. This is the time for men to study. Chen Tai, savoring this poem on encouraging learning, felt it was deeply insightful, and left a lasting. Brother Jinyan, do you remember our youth, when we studied at the academy? Zhang Shen also recalled the scenes of his early years of study. He sighed. Isn't this exactly how we were back then? When I was young, my family was poor. I could only eat 2 steamed buns a day. Often, I would be starving in the middle of the night, forcing myself to study by the. Li Mubai said leisurely, is that why you kept stealing my eggs every few days? Zhang Shen retorted, a scholar's actions cannot be called stealing. It was borrowing. Didn't I return them later? Li Mubai glared at him. A single egg in times of poverty is worth 1,000 pieces of gold now. Chen Tai coughed, interrupting the argument between his two friends. He turned to Su Xinyan. Cijo, after the spring examination, regardless of your ranking, you will have the qualifications to serve. Have you thought about your future? History always repeats itself. Before meeting Su Qian, Zhang Tai had maintained an air of disdain for fame and fortune. But after seeing Su Qian compose a poem on encouraging learning, he pestered Su Qian to become his disciple. Su Qian naturally couldn't agree, so he changed the subject. Gentlemen, I have a question to ask. I've been stuck at the refining essence stage for a long time. Due to lack of merit and family poverty, I've never had the resources or opportunity to advance to the refining chi stage. Please help me open the heavenly gate. This was Su Qian's second purpose for coming to the academy. Although he could sell the magical artifact given by Song Qing and use the money to open the heavenly gate, that wouldn't bring him any joy. Su Qian was someone who pursued free opportunities. He would never spend money if he could avoid it. Zhang Shen shook his head and smiled. You're panicking and seeking help blindly. We cultivate the Tao of Confucianism. How can we help you open the heavenly gate? Su Qian was somewhat disappointed. He asked unwillingly, Junior doesn't understand. If opening the heavenly gate requires the help of a refining spirit stage expert or higher, how did the first person open the heavenly gate? Li Mubai countered with a question. Do you think the path of martial arts was created by someone and achieved overnight? Li Mubai continued slowly. It was forged by generations of people. Perhaps, at the beginning, refining essence was. Then, by chance, someone opened the heavenly gate, and refining chi became the pinnacle of martial arts. Over time, a complete martial arts system was formed. Su Qian caught the key phrase, by chance. Chen Tai took over the conversation. Having a refining spirit stage expert help open the heavenly gate is the safest and most convenient method, but it's not the only way. At birth, humans possess a strand of innate chi. As they grow older, the heavenly gate closes, and the innate chi hides within the body. To regain control of this chi, the closed heavenly gate must be reopened. There are many methods to do this. Besides the well-known method of opening the heavenly gate, there are 2 others. The first is the breathing technique. The breathing technique requires starting from a young age, daily medicinal baths, cleansing the meridians, and opening the heavenly gate. Over a decade, it consumes vast amounts of money. Nowadays, this method has been abandoned. The second method is to use external force to open the heavenly gate. This was the crude method used by the earliest predecessors. For example, swallowing a demon core. The demon core is the essence of a demon's cultivation, containing vast energy. After swallowing the demon core, the immense energy is used to forcibly open the 8 extraordinary meridians. But because it's uncontrollable, it's a life and death gamble. Su Qian suddenly understood. So that's how it is. Although I didn't get a free opportunity, I still got some free knowledge. This round wasn't a loss. Su Qian expressed his gratitude. Thank you, gentlemen, for the lesson. In the Sage's Academy, A group of students gathered around a notice. After a long while, one student exclaimed, "Which great scholar wrote this poem on encouraging learning?" Many students, after reading it, expressed regret. "Since the autumn exams, I haven't stayed up late to study. During the day, I wander the mountains and rivers, and at night, I play chess by lamplight. I've truly wasted my time without realizing it." Zhang Tai stroked his beard and smiled. "They say poetry is useless, but they don't realize how deeply it moves the heart. Su Ningyan truly has extraordinary poetic talent." Then, with a pained expression, he added, "Such talent, yet he chose martial arts. It's a waste of heaven's gift. Now that he's reached adulthood, it's too late for him to switch to the Tao." Zhang Shan seemed to remember something. He mentioned that when they were young, their father decided that Su Xinyan would study, and Su Ningyan would practice martial arts. Li Mubai said bitterly that Su Pingji is no father. He wasted a good seedling for scholarship. It's truly hateful and detestable. The students' discussion grew more intense. One student asked in confusion, "This poem on encouraging learning will surely spread far and wide, but why isn't there a signature?" Li Mubai overheard this. At this moment, his mind was filled with the words "no signature." In the next moment, he disappeared from his spot and appeared in front of the notice. With a sly smile, he added his own signature. At the end of the Gengzi year, the beginning of Xinqiu, inspired by Li Mubai's encouragement to learn, I composed this poem. Qin Tai and Zhang Shan were furious. "How shameless, old thief! Do you have no shame?"